a man, who they say he murdered 3. Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Fez are cool. If you remember Matt Smith, well, he also wore a bow tie. I don't think bow ties are cool. I just checked the pantry and I found that I only had 2 pounds of coffee. I need to go to the Organic Man coffee trike and stock up in case. In case I forget to buy more coffee and I accidentally run out. The news came out saying the world was about to experience a coffee shortage. Due to a freeze that hit Brazil, coffee plants were no longer producing coffee. The world was about to run out. This was back in 1977. Within a few months, the coffee production was back to normal, coming in from other countries that grew coffee. But still, I don't want to get caught off guard. Every so often, some talking head will announce the coming end to one of our favorite things, only to be proven wrong a few days or weeks later. When will those people learn? Just because they hate us, stop trying to scare us. It doesn't seem to be working anymore. I will still go to Organic Man Coffee Trike and pick up a few more pounds because I do drink a lot of coffee. Only the best coffee in the universe. 4501 McPherson here in Laredo, or the Organic Man Coffee Trike .shop for everybody else. Some of my listeners are going to think I've lost it. Others will listen and wonder, does earthing really work? And why is this guy wearing a fez? This is one of those new age things that isn't really all that new. I think I'll take this off now. The other night, we watched a documentary called The Earthing Movie, The Remarkable Science of Grounding. You can find it on YouTube. It has a disclaimer at the beginning saying, the Food and Drug Administration has not studied any of this information. I would have been surprised if they had. Earthing is also called grounding, but some folks say they're the same thing. Others say there's quite a difference. One major difference between grounding and earthing is that in grounding, the current carrying part is connected to the ground, whereas in earthing, the non-current carrying part is the one connected. The outcome is pretty much the same. It's kind of like before we had polarized plugs on everything. You could turn the plug to a light to the left, to the right, it didn't matter because both little prongs were the same. And then somebody said, oh, we need to do something about that. So you can never plug a lamp in the dark. Now, I'm not talking about ground wire connected to the TV. I'm talking about our bodies. I first heard about this from my nephew John maybe 6 years ago. He and his wife would walk around outside barefoot as often as they could. But they live in Virginia. Living in Laredo, we don't go barefoot outside, ever. There are too many things that bite, sting, or poke to allow the feet to make contact with the ground. Also, it gets hot here. The sidewalk can be hot enough to cook eggs. Even the dirt gets way too hot. In an effort to try earthing, we did take our shoes off and stand in the shade in a place where there were no bugs or snakes or grass spurs or thorns and all the rest of the things that hurt. In other words, it was bare dirt. At the time, I can't say it worked, but I don't think I tried long enough. Today, we're putting a lot more effort into seeing if there are any health benefits to reconnecting with the planet. I am no hippie. I really didn't much care for them back when they were everywhere. I went to school with so many hippies, I still think they're nuts. See, when I was in school, it was a little difficult to tell who the guys and who the girls were because everybody had long hair and they all wore dirty clothes. Yuck. Cody Lundeen is a professional survival instructor and he's a best selling author. I read his book twice. It's called When All Hell Breaks Loose. And it's not geared towards the apocalypse, but towards everyday disasters. Apocalypse, like the way they said it in The Road Warrior. Lundeen baked, based his life on living close to the land, being able to survive in any situation, and ultimately doing more with less. He didn't start out as a survivalist. He started out just trying to survive. He didn't have any money, so he set up house out in the brush, living off the land and eating what he could find. Literally, you know, roadkill. He decided he needed some form of income, and teaching what he had learned living off the land became his career. If you ever watched his show, Dual Survival, you'll have noticed Lundeen goes barefoot just about all the time, even in the snow. His partner called him that hippie dude. There's more to it than just being different. Lundeen has his reasons that are more in line with health than being weird. Lundeen said he noticed a lot of indigenous people go barefoot, even though they had moccasins or other forms of footwear. If you have to make your own shoes, you wear them only when you have to. Lundeen said shoes are not bad, but you should go barefoot as often as you can. Let's face it, we're not born wearing shoes. It is natural for the old peds to pound to the ground at least once in a while. When Lundeen was younger, the old war in Vietnam was still going on. Any time a person got taken prisoner by the VC, they would immediately take their boots away and made them walk barefoot. This made it near impossible for the prisoners to escape. Our soldiers and airmen were so used to wearing boots, they were hobbled by not having them. Lundeen did some studying and he found the angle of the foot when running barefoot is better for the joints than when wearing shoes. In an effort to toughen up his feet, Lundeen began walking and running around sin zapatos without shoes. One thing led to another, and soon he hardly ever put on footwear. He does keep a pair of flip flops in his car in case the building he needs to enter doesn't allow bare feet. It's a good thing he doesn't drive a truck because real truck drivers don't wear flip flops. Ike Stevenson says so. No, it's Stevens, not Stevenson. Ike Stevens. He lives up near Jefferson. Welcome to another episode of Bonehead Truckers, where we make fun of the stupid things we see out there. Yes, that's how he starts his show. Lundeen says because he doesn't wear shoes all the time, he has very strong feet, strong tendons and ligaments in his ankles, and strong lower legs. By constantly using footwear, people are allowing their feet and legs to become dependent on artificial support for their walking and running parts. It's just like if you kept your arm in a sling for years, it would atrophy. By not using what is already attached to you, it becomes weak and unusable. I saw someone, a bonehead, put an article saying that Cody Lundeen had died. Odd how he's still running around barefoot today. I see these articles all the time. Whoever is putting them out should be introduced to a sound thrashing using either a dead fish or a live badger. I am becoming more paranoid about using my Art Bell coffee cup. I'm afraid it's going to go the way of the last two. I might have to go back to using that steel cup. The one that if I drop it, it just makes a mess and a noise, but it doesn't break. If you grew up around the same time as me, or you loved good music, you will know about the group Dire Straits. Mark Knopfler, David Knopfler, John Isley, and Pick Withers. When asked who was the best guitarist on earth, Mark Knopfler said David Gilmour. When David Gilmour was asked, he said Mark Knopfler. During many live performances, Mark Knopfler was seen barefoot on stage. He said he felt more connected to the ground and he preferred the natural feel of being barefoot. He also started wearing shoes all the time after stepping on something that hurt his foot. I already said we don't go barefoot in Laredo. Blistered, bloody feet are not healthy. I did buy a pair of earthing shoes because they are healthy. They look weird. Something designed by a hippie or maybe an artiste. They look like this for those of you watching on YouTube. And like I said, they look weird. They look hippie-ish. I've worn them for about a month now, and surprisingly, I feel pretty good down below the waist. The shoes have a zero cushioning, not just flat, but only a couple of layers of material. The first couple times I wore them, I felt like there was nothing there, like I was barefoot. It felt like I was tipping over backwards also because they have no heel. Over time, they became my almost always footwear. I did tear down an old shed in my backyard, and I did have to put on my old shoes to do that, and my old shoes felt weird. By the end of the day, my feet and my legs hurt. The landfill is beginning to look like a mountain range. Mount Fuji. For those of you that don't know, Fuji means nasty or disgusting, like as in Dr. Fuji. Yes, that guy. I hope he likes orange jumpsuits. I wonder if just maybe this is how the Alps got started. My feet felt weird wearing regular shoes. I really can't wait to pull them off and put on those weird fancy pants earthing shoes. Now, what is going on here? Am I becoming a hippie? Or is there something to this? Folks in China have this weird way of doing things. They live and work in some buildings. Sometimes these places are super tall and hold everything from food stalls to dry cleaners. The workers never need to step outside and plant their feet in the dirt. In Singapore, between 1960 and 1976, the percentage of people living in high rise buildings clomb from 9 to 51%. During this same time period, their per capita rate of suicides by leaping from tall buildings increased by 4 times, while suicide by other means declined. Since overall suicide increased so much, it was mostly by folks in high rise buildings taking the express elevator to the dirt. Could there be some reason these folks never touched the ground with their bare feet and thus they unlived themselves? What are the hazards involved in staying up off the ground? To begin with, they're experiencing a limited exposure to nature. Living in high rise buildings often means residents miss out on close contact with dirt, grass, plants that are growing in the dirt, things like that. It can be more challenging for them to relax, which negatively impacts both mental and physical health. Studies show that proximity to greenery can enhance moods and well being. Being high up in a building may discourage residents from spending time outdoors. The effort required to navigate down to the green space can significantly reduce their chances of enjoying fresh air and its calming effects. Fresh air is essential for overall health, and a lack of it can contribute to feelings of lethargy and suicidal tendencies. City environments are filled with noise from traffic, construction, and other urban activities. The cement of the buildings and the glass panels reflect sound instead of deadening it. So sound increases and it travels. City environments are not the place to live. Kind of like how Mars isn't the place to raise your kids. Just picture that scene in The Fifth Element when Corbin Dallas, played by Bruce Willis, is having dinner served by Mr. Kim, who was played by Kim Chan. All you see is high rise buildings and flying cars as the dinner wagon pulls away. High rise residents are exposed to constant sound that can heighten stress levels, disturb sleep, and create a less peaceful living atmosphere. Chronic exposure to noise pollution has been linked to all kinds of health issues, including hypertension and anxiety. Apartments and tall buildings can often have limited access to direct sunlight, especially if they face other structures. This reduction in natural light can lower vitamin D levels, contributing to a feeling of fatigue and a bad mood disorder, what they call seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. Natural sunlight is crucial for regulating circadian rhythms and enhances mental well being. High rise living means a greater dependency on elevators rather than taking the stairs. Daily opportunities for physical activity are reduced, leading to a sedentary lifestyle, which is associated to all kinds of health risks, as well as obesity and cardiovascular issues. Residents in high rise buildings often report feeling isolated from their community. In our neighborhood, right around the Black Plague of 2020, We would walk around the neighborhood and visit all of our neighbors. We would ask if they needed anything. We told them if we had it, we would willingly share. Toilet paper, water, toilet paper. I can't I can't get over that. What happened to all the toilet paper? Well, that was another show. We started making cookies around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, sometimes Halloween. Then we would go around and we would distribute these unhealthy snacks to all of our neighbors. It didn't take long before our neighbors started walking around doing the same thing, getting to know each other, getting to know who's living next door. We have created our own neighborhood watch. If any of the neighbors are going to be out of town, they'll tell us. They'll tell their neighbors, hey, we're going to San Antonio or we're going to Dallas and we're not planning on moving. So if you see a moving truck, call the police. We have become more of a neighborhood. You might consider that. It doesn't take much to bake some cookies, or you can even buy them. Just buy the good ones, the tasty ones, the ones that don't have high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated monkey pus, any of the artificial sweeteners. You don't want to kill your neighbors. Anyway, just go around and hand out some cookies next time there's a holiday, or next time you feel like it. You'll be amazed at how all of a sudden the people around you become more friendly. Without nearby parks or green spaces, high rise residents struggle to find places for outdoor exercise or relaxation. The lack of outdoor activity areas hinders physical fitness and opportunities for mental rejuvenation. Even when the building comes equipped with a garden area, it's not connected to the planet. It's just a pile of dirt with a few trees or plants in it. Not as many health benefits as actually touching the ground. Being surrounded by concrete and steel, high rise dwellers feel disconnected from nature, which offers natural stress relief through sights, sounds, and smells. This separation can lead to heightened anxiety, reduced emotional balance. Many high rise apartments offer limited living space, which can feel cramped and claustrophobic. This constant feeling of confinement can increase stress and frustration, particularly for families or individuals who spend long periods of time at home, like the ones that work from home. A lack of personal space can lead to increased tension and conflicts among the residents. I would never have survived being in a submarine. It was hard enough being inside a tank with only four other guys. And we got to get out once in a while and play in the dirt, although it wasn't really playing. High rise living often eliminates the chance for residents to engage in gardening and other natural hobbies. Studies show that such activities are beneficial for stress reduction and improved mood. I've seen that commercial way too many times where some young woman moves into a city and is looking out the window at nothing but concrete. So she orders some plants. Well, it's not a commercial for plants, it's for the company shipping the plants. She's still not connected to nature because she's way up off the ground inside a concrete building. Many high rise residents report feeling less connected to their surroundings and experience lower overall well being. The combination of environmental factors, including noise, pollution, and isolation, results in diminished happiness and mental health challenges. Now, I'm getting away from the subject of earthing, but you get the idea. The further from nature we are, the more trouble our health will experience. However, just getting back down to earth might not be the solution. The electrical signals inside our bodies are generated through a controlled movement of charged particles called ions. Key ions involved include sodium, potassium, calcium, and chloride, which are present in fluids both inside and outside our cells. Cell membranes act as barriers, maintaining different concentrations of these ions on either side, kind of like a tiny battery. This difference in ion concentration creates an electrical potential across the cell membrane known as the resting membrane potential, with the inside of the cell typically more negative than the outside. Ion channels, specialized in protein structures within the cell membrane, open and close to allow specific ions to pass. When stimulated, these channels open, leading to a rapid influx or efflux of ions and a temporary change in membrane potential. The electrical event is called the action potential. During an action potential, the cell's interior briefly becomes positive due to the entry of positive ions, primarily sodium. Other ion channels then open, allowing positive ions, potassium, to exit, restoring the negative charge inside the electrical wave propagates along the cell, transmitting signals. Now, I know that's a lot of scientific stuff. If you ever become a nurse, a doctor, a medic, you work in the medical field, you become a reflexologist, things like that, you might learn all this. You find out how the human body actually works. I couldn't find anybody with the wording that I wanted to use, so I had to use what I could come up with. This is a layman's explanation on how our bodies work. Look at any lamp plug. There's a positive and a negative. Electricity comes into the house and is transported to the lamp along a positively charged wire. It uses some of the power to light the light bulb, and then it exits through the negative wire. If the negative wire isn't there, no power will reach the light bulb and you'll be in the dark. If the lamp has a short in it and you touch the switch, you just might get a electrical shock. This is where the ground wire comes in. It channels any unwanted current away from the house. Electricity is moving about our bodies. Not all of it is being generated inside. We absorb some energy just by being around it. The energy gets stored all over our bodies, waiting for its time to exit. At one time, everybody wore shoes with natural soles. Leather was the thing, and it helped connect us to the ground. In 1939, Charles Goodyear came up with a rubber sole that lasted longer and gave better traction for footwear. This was good for shoes, but not good for us. It was separating us from the ground. If you've ever tried to fix electrical problems on an old vehicle, you would know about grounding issues. Electricity has to travel along the positive wire to the lights, make the lights light, and then go back to the chassis by way of a ground wire. Just about every lighting problem I ever had that didn't involve the bulb was the ground. Many folks have found out the same holds true with our bodies. The energy gets trapped in us and causes physical and sometimes mental problems. In a study from 2018, the 16 message massage ther- message therapists, I don't think there is such a thing. Try that again. In 2018, 16 massage therapists participated in a controlled trial that aimed to assess the potential benefits of working and sleeping while being grounded. After 4 weeks, participants showed a general trend of stress relief. In 2019 study, researchers explored the benefits of grounding in 16 adults who also worked as massage therapists. Before grounding therapy, physical and emotional stress and pain were common side effects of the physically demanding job. After 1 week of earthing therapy and at a subsequent follow up, participants reported lower levels of pain, stress, depression, and fatigue. Now, both studies had limitations. Small groups of research subjects don't allow the results to be widely generalized, and neither study accounted for gender, body composition, differences in environment, things like that, that could have had some effects on the study. A more recent study of 21 people with diabetes showed 1 hour. Why do I see Wilford Brimley's face in my mind? Some of you will get that one. The 21 people, now I can't say the word, 21 people with diabetes showed 1 hour of grounding per day for a month accelerated wound healing, which is typically challenging for people with the condition. Eric, try it. A 2022 experiment on 20 preterm infants in Indonesia showed 1 hour of grounding per day for 30 days reduced the duration of acute respiratory infections in the babies. Why were these studies so small? To begin with, most of the boys in the white lab coats consider grounding to be woo woo. It sounds silly, so they ignore the idea and they refuse to even look into the possibility there just might be something to it. The people holding the purse strings decide what gets studied. This is not because the idea of earthing or grounding is too weird. Just look at some of the things being researched. A research study has found out that being homeless is bad for your health. Did somebody actually have to look into this to figure out that living on the street and eating out of dumpsters is not a good thing? I'll bet it cost us taxpayers a healthy sum. Another study, scientists discovered that quitting smoking after having a heart attack reduces chest pain and lessens the chances of having another heart attack. Somebody found out that exercise is good for you because of a scientific study. Before that outstanding discovery, exercise was just something people did when they were bored. If they'll look into research that really isn't needed, such as somebody is trying to create a bird with little hands and a tail, it's going to look like a T Rex or a raptor. Yes, our tax dollars are being spent trying to create a bird with hands. That's going to look really weird in a fried chicken box. What are these little bitty hands? Oh, okay. If they look into such bizarre things for research, then why don't they want to look into grounding? I have two theories about this. One, the big companies selling us cures for diseases that didn't exist a few years ago don't like the idea of natural way of lowering blood pressure or diminishing mental problems. Why use a natural cure when there's a chemical that might do it? Cure the patient, lose the customer. Pill pushers are not in business to make folks healthy. Healthy people don't need pills. The second theory is the people who want to reduce the population of the planet and then rule over what is left are already using grounding or earthing as their own private way of staying healthy. Just look at some of these elites. Many have been alive way longer than seems possible. Why is it that they don't just fall over dead from old age like they should? Now, I know about the conservation of malignancy. I was a paramedic, after all. Okay, some of you don't know about this unwritten idea. It's not found in textbooks. They don't teach it in class. Conservation of malignancy says if a person is so nasty and mean, disease will avoid them because their soul is already sick enough, so why bother? Some nice old lady who bakes cookies and has hundreds of cats will get sick and die because her personality is so nice, disease is the only bad thing inside of her. You may have heard about how some scientist has discovered a cure for cancer, but the secret is being hidden away to only be used by those people. How about that engine that could get 100 miles on a gallon of gas? So the oil companies bought the patent and hid it under a rock somewhere. Are these just conspiracy theories or are they facts? Scientists say that the world is running out of conspiracy theories due to so many of them being proven true. Since the boys in the white lab coats don't want to look, how about we do our own research? Citizen scientists, as they used to say. We just won't wear white lab coats. The experts tell us this is a bad idea. Personal research is wrong. We should allow somebody, some professional, to do it. That way they can tell us what is true and what is not. First thing you're going to need is an open mind. This is probably the biggest challenge for some. There are folks out there who wait until somebody else tells them what to think and what to believe. These folks all watch a certain news program, starts with a C and ends with an N, and they're the ones you see driving around town all alone in their vehicles, wearing their masks, which have already been proven to cause more harm than good. You might want to get a notebook and write down a few things. Not right now, but when you start your scientificking. Day one, how do you feel? Did you sleep okay, and what parts of your body hurt? In my case, the it's more like what doesn't hurt. The parts that don't hurt are numb. There are a few things you can do to kick off your research. Walking barefoot on grass, sand, or even in the mud, which is fun because it squishes up between your toes, without shoes or socks allows the skin to touch the natural ground, which can provide grounding energy. If you live in Laredo, you might want to try this at night after it cools down a bit. And take a flashlight so you don't step on anything sharp, pointy, or that bites or stings. If you want to go a bit further, try laying on the ground, allowing your skin to come in direct contact with the earth. You can do this in the grass at the park or on the beach, laying in the sand. The more skin that makes contact with the ground, the better. But a word of caution: don't lay in the grass naked, especially, especially if you're at the park. It will not be healthy trying to explain to the police what you're trying to do. Some people have taken off all their clothes to lay on the ground. They said it worked like magic. They also had big backyards with privacy fences. Natural sea or river water can ground the human body in the same way that the physical earth does. One day, many years ago, my mother in law decided that she needed to bathe in the Gulf. It was her form of grounding, I think. We drove over to Corpus Christi and I parked by the seawall. She was in a wheelchair because walking was a bit difficult. I looked at the chair and then down the concrete steps to the water below. It was not going to work out, so I grabbed her out of the chair, threw her over my shoulder, and I ran down the steps. She let out a scream and she continued all the way to the bottom. Once at the water, I dropped her in. People all along the waterfront watched. I'll bet a few were about to call the police. That guy just threw that old lady in the water. My wife was aghast at first. She thought maybe I had done something crazy, which I'm known for doing. Then she noticed that her mother was actually laughing her head off and splashing in the surf. The water was only about 2 feet deep, and I didn't really drop her in. It just looked like it from the top of the seawall. Did this work? She seemed to think so. She was a lot happier and she acted less crusty for the next few weeks. When going outside to ground yourself isn't an option, a grounding mat or similar equipment may be used. Some products include socks, patches, and blankets. Earthing mats are used to reduce electric and magnetic field exposure and enable you to have a connection between your body and the earth outside. Some look like yoga mats, but they have a control wire that's attached to them that is that is actually attached to the ground wire of the house. These can be easily used because you just roll them out when you want to use them, plug them into the wall, and you're grounding. You can use them while watching TV or doing other things, but you're pretty much laying in one spot. We have an earthing pad on our mattress. It's a sheet of polyurethane with carbon fibers woven into the material. There's a wire that runs to the ground of an outlet. The wire connects only to the ground. That's that little round plug next to the two prongs. Now, I can't guarantee that this will work for you, but it seems to work for us. I feel a lot more relaxed at night. I don't toss and turn quite as much, and snoring has gotten a lot less bothersome. Still, there is a little tiny bit of snoring, but it's not like it used to be. To me, the sheets also feel a bit cooler, which in Laredo, that's definitely a plus. Maybe this is all just inside my head, but my wife has said that the same thing is happening to her. A lot of other folks have also said these things. The pad isn't all that expensive. I paid 75 bucks for the one that we have. If you go with the silver pad, it will cost about $200. The silver pad works a lot better, but it comes as a fitted sheet, which you have to wash on a regular basis. Most shoes today have rubber soles, but grounding shoes are either leather or they have carbon fiber inserts that pass from the last to the sole. This allows energy to pass through the shoe. The idea is that the permeability of the leather or the conductivity of the carbon fiber allows a connection to the earth, which is blocked by rubber soled shoes. Now, this might not be a good idea in an electric storm, but then being in an electric storm is not a good idea. Those weird fancy pants, artistic looking shoes cost $40. I bought a pair for my wife as well. She says they do work. She feels less stressed out at work, which, seeing as she's a school teacher, is a good thing. Since the experts have decided that kids don't need recess anymore, they're trapped inside the classroom all day. I also bought a couple of earthing pads for her classroom. They just little squares that you go and stand on barefooted every once in a while. Now, I don't know if anybody's going to complain about this or not. I don't see the problem, but some people. I asked my wife to give me a report back on whether or not they seem to work or not. There are elastic earthing bands that are adjustable that you can place on your wrists, but to me that seems a bit weird to be attached to the wall by a tether, especially if you use them while cooking, because for me, cooking is a dynamic affair. I just know that I would either flip the pan off the stove onto the floor, or the electrical cord will wind up on the burner and melt, which is not going to taste good. A type of electricity charged bed has been created that features silver wires that are connected to the electrical charge of the earth once plugged into an earthing port. These are specialty beds that they cost a lot of cash. These are said to also do the same thing, but they do it at a much better uh, function. They cost better, they work better. Construction on the Integratron began in 1954 by aeronautical engineer and ufologist George Van Tassel. He built the dome after receiving instructions from extraterrestrials from Venus. They were called the Council of Seven Lights. During his first UFO encounter, Van Tassel said he was invited aboard a Venusian spaceship and given explicit instructions on how to create a machine that could rejuvenate the living cells in the human body. Van Tassel chose the Integratron site due to its powerful geomagnetic energy, which he believed could be amplified within a wooden parabolic structure. The building was constructed without the use of any nails or screws. It was entirely made from plywood fiberglass held together with wooden dowels. Using these materials and influenced by the theories of Nikolai Tesla and sacred geometry, Van Tassel believes that the Integratron was more than a building. It would serve as a combination time machine, rejuvenation machine, and maybe an anti gravity device. The entire structure was supposed to rotate, driven by an electrical motor mounted on the side. The Integratron's operation was based on the generation of strong intermediate magnetic fields that resulted in a generation of plasma in the form of coronal discharge and negative air ionization inside the building. According to Van Tassel, the generation of strong ultra wideband electromagnetic frequencies by the integratron resonated with the cell's frequency and recharges the cellular structure as if it were an electrical battery. This process is believed to rejuvenate human cells and potentially extend the human life. The structure is also constructed atop a powerful geomagnetic anomaly and is made of non ferromagnetic materials. In other words, no metals, nothing magnetic, which are equivalent to modern radome. That's the cover over a radar dish. Just before the Integratron was scheduled to start, Van Tassel died suddenly. There is some controversy surrounding his death as he was known to be a very healthy 67-year-old man. That's not so old, darn it. I'm 67. I always look at pictures of George and I think, that old guy. Then I realize he's my age, or I'm his age. His cause of death was listed as a heart attack. Van Tassel's body was cremated before they let his family know that he had died. Nothing suspicious there. According to Van Tassel's widow, government agents ransacked their home and they confiscated all of George's papers and equipment while she was attending the funeral. Ownership of the Integratron has changed hands several times through the 80s and 90s. The building was constantly well maintained. Now privately owned, the Integratron promotes public sound baths in an acoustically perfect wooden dome, and it can be rented for events and spiritual retreats. The way it looks to me, the Integratron was doing kind of the same thing as earthing, only in a much bigger and bolder manner. Recharge the cells and discharge the old energy. When doing energy healing, we were told to take our shoes off in order to connect with the planet. Once we had finished, we were to go outside to clear ourselves. We were to stand in the grass and relax. Being in Laredo, they didn't tell us to stand barefoot, just get off the pavement. Energy healing is also considered to be woo woo and not looked into by real scientists. It's funny how every time in the past some inquisitive soul began looking at new ideas, they were laughed at and ridiculed by the real scientists until the new ideas were proven to be true. Something as simple and basic as washing your hands after touching dead bodies. In May 1847, Dr. Semmelweis required anyone examining women in the maternity ward in the Vienna General Hospital to first wash their hands with chlorinated lime solution. The cases of para- puerperal fever decreased by 18.3% in April to 2.2% in June. Something as simple as washing their hands had reduced the number of deaths by 16%. For several months in 1948, there were no deaths whatsoever. Although his work showed that hand washing would save lives, other doctors rejected his findings. His ideas contradicted medical thinking of the time. Many of the doctors also didn't like the suggestion that maybe they were the ones spreading this fever to the patients. Dr. Semmelweis was ridiculed in Vienna and he resigned and left town. Even though his ideas were rejected in 1851, he moved to Hungary and took a position in the maternity ward in the Budapest hospital. There, once again, he implemented his hand washing requirements and virtually eliminated fever in the ward. Despite this achievement, his ideas on hand washing were still not accepted. Dr. Semmelweis was outraged. People were dying because his ideas on washing your hands were rejected. 1865, he suffered a mental breakdown, severe depression, and he was admitted to a mental asylum. When he tried to escape, he was beaten by the guards. He died 14 days later from a gangrenous wound. He had probably received this from the guards who beat him. What was that about follow the science? Oh, wait. That was something else. Thalidomide was introduced in the late 1950s as a sedative and was marketed in various countries, including the US, Germany, the UK, and Austria, primarily for the treatment of anxiety, insomnia, and morning sickness in pregnant women. Despite its initial promotion as being safe, it had not been adequately tested. By 1961, reports began to emerge linking thalidomide to severe birth defects, particularly when taken during the first trimester of pregnancy. Common deformities included shortening or absence of limbs, organ malformation, and other serious health issues. It is estimated that over 10,000 children were affected globally, and many did not survive past infancy. This disaster promoted the reevaluation of drug safety regulations. Following the thalidomide tragedy, the Kefauver-Harris amendments were enacted, requiring rigorous testing and evidence of safety before drugs could be marketed. But those doing the testing are the folks selling the drugs. That poke everybody received for the Black Plague in 2020, well, that just kind of slipped through the cracks somehow. When I was young, nobody was allergic to peanuts. Just about every kid I knew had a peanut butter sandwich at least 3 times a week. Some of us had 'em 5 times a week. Then things got ugly. In 2000, the American Academy of Pediatrics issued a recommendation that children under 4 and pregnant women or lactating women avoid peanuts. because they potentially had a high risk of becoming allergic. That recommendation was based on a United Kingdom recommendation connected to a 1996 study from the British Medical Journal that actually had found no association between pregnant mothers eating peanuts and their babies developing allergies. In fact, they had found just the opposite. I guess the people in charge didn't like that outcome, so they simply ignored the real evidence. Emergency department visits for peanut anaphylaxis, which is a life threatening allergic reaction, swelling of the airways, skyrocketed, and schools began enacting peanut bans. Why you don't see a bag of peanuts on an airline anymore. In 2007, roughly 5% of medical claims for anaphylactic food reactions were for peanuts. 2016, it was 25%. But 2019, there were reports that 1 in every 18 children in America had a peanut allergy. The AAP recommendation that created a vicious cycle. The more prevalent peanut allergies became, the more people avoided peanuts for young children. This, in turn, seemed to be causing more peanut allergies. Today, many doctors recommend early exposure to peanuts is best, but the remnants of the peanut advocate, the peanut avoidance recommendations are still around. The US and the UK have the highest rates of peanut allergies in the world. Adjuvant 65 4 is a specific formulation of a mineral oil based adjuvant that was developed in the 60s by a certain company that makes drugs. It was initially designed to improve the efficiency of influenza vaccines by enhancing the immune response. While Adjuvant 65 4 was an early effort in the field of vaccine development, it isn't used so much today because they've discovered there are some safety concerns. 1975 research article identified Adjuvant 65 4 as containing peanut oil. Peanut oil was used in flu vaccines and may still be used today. If you follow the childhood vaccine schedule, your kid could wind up receiving a vaccine that contains peanut oil, which could lead to a deadly peanut allergy. I see. People were being made allergic by bad science. The long and the short of this is just because they wear white lab coats doesn't mean they really know what they're doing. Just because it sounds very woo woo doesn't make it stupid. Since I began wearing those goofy looking earthing shoes, my knees don't hurt as much, and I think my balance is improving. Maybe I just want it to work. Maybe those shoes look so weird that I'm deceiving myself into thinking they work, or I'd be embarrassed to be seen in public wearing them. Science is a systematic pursuit of knowledge that involves observing, experimenting, and analyzing the world around us. It doesn't say anything about white lab coats or accepting government grants in order to be legit. Too many scientific studies are skewed by the folks holding the purse strings. This is what we want you to find out. I am doing scientific research into whether or not earthing works. If you want to join me in my endeavor, go for it. You don't even have to buy the shoes or the pad. Just take off your shoes and walk around outside. Watch for scorpions, snakes, grass spurs, thorns, broken glass, etc. All you really need is an open mind and maybe something to steady. It can be almost anything, like the effects of too much coffee and an inability to listen to certain kinds of music. How about thinking things through before jumping to conclusions? See if the world is a better place after all or not. In that movie about earthing, they showed how plants would respond as well. We have several tomato plants in huge plastic planters. Nothing is growing. I placed a copper wire at the base of one of the plants and I stuck it into the ground. A week later, there were a few small tomatoes growing. Only that one plant. The others were still completely devoid of fruit. I tried using a steel wire, but nothing happened. So now I have run a copper wire to two of the plants to see if anything happens to the second one. I will continue trying earthing and let you know if I grow a tail or if I feel better in a few more months. The best part of doing it this way is I am not introducing any chemicals into my body. I'm not having to get blood work to be sure that drug X isn't having unwanted interactions with drug Z. My money is going to small companies that don't pay Congress millions of dollars to avoid being taken to task for unethical activity. The worst thing that can happen is nothing. Citizen science should be a thing once more. Let's make it happen. Ask yourself, what can you study today for the next couple of weeks, months, or years that might make the world a better place? Let me know. Till next Saturday, this is Chris James for Strange Things.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man who they say he murdered three? Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.